My marriage to Adrian had lasted 3 years. Now his long-lost love, his white moonlight, had returned. I took the initiative to suggest a divorce, but he countered that his family had a rule: no divorce for 10 years. Unable to help myself, I voiced the practical concern weighing on my mind. So what about you and her? Will you just have an affair? Are you completely out of your mind, Lyra? He bellowed the words, his voice sharp with frustration, before turning on his heel and walking away. He didn't even touch the dinner waiting on the table. Marry me, and I will cover all your niece's medical expenses. That was the deal I struck 3 years ago, signing away my freedom, or so it felt, in a sterile hospital room. Now the woman he truly loved was back. It was only natural that I should relinquish the position of Mrs. Sterling. He had been forced into this marriage with me to secure a substantial marriage fund from his family trust, but his heart had always belonged to one person, Bianca. Bianca herself sought me out, a calculated visit veiled as a simple chat. "Isn't it time you gave Adrian back to me?" she asked, her voice impossibly smooth. It was the first time I had ever seen the legendary Bianca in person. She wore a dress of simple, elegant cut, paired with matching heels. Her black hair flowed like polished silk, gleaming with a healthy sheen. Standing before me, she smiled faintly, her eyes seeming to hold a galaxy of stars, radiating an undeniable aura of nobility from head to toe. Even as a woman, I couldn't help but gaze at her, captivated. Her poise and presence were breathtaking, stirring an involuntary flutter in my chest. I swallowed nervously, my mind reeling from her abrupt question. It took me a moment, a long, awkward beat, before I could stammer out, I'll ask Adrian about it." "I'll handle Adrian," she replied, her tone gentle yet carrying an underlying steel that sent a shiver down my spine. "As long as you don't object. I was just concerned you might be the type to cling." I have no objection." The first round against Bianca. Total defeat. Adrian and I had always known our marriage was a pretense, bound to end eventually. Yet, as the moment of separation loomed, an unexpected heaviness settled in my chest, a strange sense of blockage I couldn't quite explain. I returned home, my spirits low, to find Adrian already there. He had changed into his casual house clothes and was lounging on the living room sofa, leisurely flipping through a magazine. Martha, our housekeeper, was busy in the kitchen. Hearing me enter, she called out cheerfully, "Welcome back, madam. Go on up and change, dinner will be ready soon." Adrian glanced up, his gaze cool and fleeting, before lowering his eyes back to his magazine. His profile, I had to admit, was stunningly perfect, a sharp jawline, a proud chin, and eyes that held a perpetual air of calm composure, as if he carried the weight of the world with effortless grace, nothing capable of truly challenging him. By the time I came back downstairs in more comfortable clothes, Martha had finished her tasks and gone home. Adrian was already seated at the dining table, his chopsticks untouched. He was, despite his often frustrating personality, a gentleman in the small things. If he was home for dinner, he would always wait for me. And I, in turn, would always offer the polite, if hollow gesture, "Please don't wait for me. You can start." "Bianca came to see you today?" The mention of Bianca's name snapped me to attention, my posture straightening instantly. I hadn't planned on bringing it up, surprised that he initiated it. "Yes," I confirmed softly. Adrian didn't lift his gaze from the tabletop. "What did she say?" he asked flatly. I cleared my throat, deciding on honesty. "She said it was time to give you back to her." "And what did you say?" I said, "Okay." The words were barely out before Adrian's head snapped up, his eyes fixing on me with an intense, cold stare that made my skin prickle with sweat. Had I said the wrong thing? He held my gaze for a long, silent moment before finally speaking, his voice slow and deliberate. "What, are you that eager to get rid of me?" He had completely set down his chopsticks now, both eyes drilling into mine. For the life of me, I couldn't find the words to answer. When my silence stretched too long, Adrian spoke again. "I forgot to mention, the family trust stipulates no divorce for 10 years. That's when the dam broke and my earlier concern, clumsy as it was, tumbled out. So what about you and Bianca? Are you just going to have an affair? Lyra, are you completely dense?" he roared, his patience snapping. He pushed away from the table, his chair scraping back, and strode directly upstairs, abandoning the untouched meal. I sat frozen at the table, utterly baffled by this infuriatingly moody man. Being yelled at for no clear reason left a bitter taste in my mouth, a sting of unfairness that lingered. That night, I wrestled with the idea of going to his study to try and smooth things over. But no matter how long I thought about it, I couldn't figure out what I had done wrong. I tossed and turned for ages before finally accidentally falling asleep. All my life, I'd been told I was carefree, sometimes even absent-minded. My parents often said people without a heavy heart were happier. But was I truly happy? I honestly didn't know. After all, I had experienced profound loss at a young age, a deep-seated pain that always lay beneath the surface. It wasn't something I dwelled on constantly, but the chasm in my heart was always there, and sometimes unexpectedly, I would find myself lost in a bittersweet, solitary reflection. What kind of life would I have had if I hadn't met Adrian? It's probably best to start from the beginning. I was the kind of person who could be cheered up instantly by just a bite of something sweet. I never had grand ambitions. All I wanted was to stay close to home and open a small dessert shop. I had even dreamed up countless names for it over the years. For college, I enthusiastically chose food science. Every spare moment was spent working at various dessert shops, learning the tricks of the trade, handling ingredients, and creating. Every minute felt blissful, and I never saw it as hard work. Tasting each new creation was like savoring life itself, chewing on the sweetness of passing time. As my skills improved, I approached my boss with a proposal. Let me develop and sell my own recipes for a percentage of the profit. Perhaps seeing the genuine passion in my eyes, she agreed to my somewhat unconventional request, willing to give me a chance. In my junior year, with her permission, I designed special holiday gift boxes. The most successful was the New Year's Day box. That project earned me my first significant sum of money, the seed fund for my future venture. So during my senior year internship, I had already scouted a location and opened my own sweet shop, which I whimsically named Oink and Flower Confectionery Lab. I drew a cute pig on every product box, and many of my regulars affectionately called it the pig shop. It wasn't a big place, about 60 square meters inside with a small courtyard, which I decorated in a cozy Japanese style with warm yellow lights overhead. Because I poured my heart into developing new recipes, the shop became quite popular with young people. I made a decent living, and my days were full, tired but happy. My acquaintance with Adrian, surprisingly, began through his grandfather. Grandfather Elias was particularly fond of the sugar-free bread I made. His legs weren't strong, and sometimes when he couldn't come himself, he would send Adrian to pick it up. My lasting impression of Adrian wasn't just because he spent the most money at my shop, but because he always arrived with a perpetual frown, reluctant to speak, giving off the distinct impression that I owed him something. One time, a batch of bread wasn't ready on time. Not wanting him to wait too long, I offered him a small cake. He furrowed his brow slightly, looking utterly unimpressed, almost disgusted. Only after much cajoling did he take a tiny bite. "How is it?" I asked eagerly. "It's all right, I guess," he mumbled. Later, after I'd been busy in the preparation area and returned, I found the cake completely gone. When I went to clear the plate, he offered a curt explanation. Wasting food is shameful. In short, he wasn't an easy person to be around. Although I knew him for a while, we never became close. He always maintained a distance, keeping people at arm's length. Meanwhile, my little shop's business flourished, and the perpetually difficult young master faded into the background of my busy life. Sometimes my parents would come by to help, and that idyllic, dreamlike life continued for 2 years. The accident happened on the 3rd year, during the National Day holiday in October. It was a rare long break, and my brother and sister-in-law wanted to take our whole family on a road trip. I couldn't get away from the shop, which was too busy, so I stayed behind. One moment I was chatting happily with them in our family group chat, the next they were involved in an accident on their trip and died instantly. My niece survived because my sister-in-law shielded her tightly in her arms, but she was severely injured. In that moment I truly understood the phrase, "One thought separates heaven and hell." I desperately wanted to handle everything with Longjing, but my body betrayed me and I blacked out, collapsing right there in the shop. I wasn't unconscious for long before Adrian, who had come to pick up bread, found me. He took me to the hospital and stayed until I woke up. He told me that while I was out, he had taken several calls from the police, doctors, and relatives, but I couldn't truly process anything he said. I had retreated into a blank, numb world. Later, relatives arrived, and together we handled the funeral arrangements and admitted my niece to the hospital. Those days felt like a descent into hell, a reality I, who had always enjoyed a smooth life, could never have imagined. My niece's hospital treatment was incredibly expensive, with no guarantee of recovery. The best-case scenario was a lifetime dependency on tubes, living in constant pain. My sister-in-law's relatives, unable to bear the financial burden, decided they couldn't continue the treatment. But I couldn't bear to let her go. She was my last remaining connection to my family, my only anchor in the world. Desperate, I considered selling my parents' house, convincing myself I could always buy it back later. I contacted an agent and even posted an advertisement in my shop. One day, Adrian came for bread and saw the ad. His brow furrowed slightly. I stepped forward, initiating the conversation hesitantly. "Are you interested in buying? I need the money urgently. It's so small, what would I do with it?" His casual, dismissive tone was exactly what I expected from a scion of wealth, and the fragile hope that had flickered within me plummeted. A few days later, Adrian returned with a proposal, a swift, drastic way to get the money I needed. "Marry me in a nominal marriage," he stated, his eyes direct. "I will pay for all your niece's medical expenses." Under normal circumstances, I would have refused without a second thought. But in my current state, nothing seemed more important than preserving a life, however fragile. It was just a fake marriage. Even if it felt like selling myself, I was willing. I didn't fully grasp the intricacies of the wealthy family's rules, but the gist was that Adrian had to be married before his 32nd birthday to access a significant sum from the family trust earmarked for marriage. If he missed the deadline, he would never receive it. Though it was a marriage on paper, we still had to get a real marriage certificate and, surprisingly, go through with a lavish wedding. At the reception, Grandfather Elias beamed with pride, telling everyone, "My granddaughter-in-law, her baking is truly exceptional." It made me blush with awkwardness. After marrying Adrian, the crushing burden of my niece's medical bills was lifted. She received better treatment and care than I could have ever afforded alone. Sometimes I questioned if what I had done was right, if I was being selfish, forcing another life into existence just so I wouldn't feel utterly alone in the world. One time, Adrian countered my silent questioning. "Alone? Don't you have a husband?" I was startled by his unexpected words and stumbled for a response. He continued, almost to himself, "Even if it's fake." Later, whenever I felt a wave of sadness or loneliness, that slightly absurd comment of his would float back to me, and strangely, a tiny spark of warmth would ignite in my heart. After the marriage, the happiest person seemed to be Grandfather Elias. I often visited him, baking his favorite bread by hand, and listening to his stories of the past. He told me Adrian and his father had both been mischievous boys, difficult to manage when they were young, but as they grew older, they became incredibly disciplined and accomplished. Grandfather Elias even asked me what I liked most about Adrian. I racked my brain, honestly unable to think of a single specific quality. I finally had to resort to a forced answer. "He's kind-hearted?" The words were barely out before Adrian walked in, catching my eye. The awkwardness in that moment was thick enough to cut with a knife. Grandfather Elias merely glanced at Adrian and continued, "Yes, exactly. Don't let his cool exterior fool you. He has a very warm heart." Adrian walked over, clearing his throat a few times, subtly changing the subject. To allow me more time to spend with Grandfather Elias, he hired excellent pastry chefs to work at my shop. This freed me from the mundane tasks, giving me more time to focus on research and development for new products. Money, I realized, was truly a powerful tool. It seemed he could bend the world to his will. Sometimes Adrian would stay overnight at Grandfather Elias's villa. To maintain the facade, we had to share a room. It was a beautifully vintage villa, but the rooms were quite small. After accounting for the bathroom, there wasn't even space for a mattress or sofa in the bedroom. Adrian and I were forced to share the same bed. One night, the heating in the villa broke. Huddled under a single blanket, I shivered uncontrollably. In my sleep, I must have instinctively gravitated towards Adrian, wrapping myself around him like a koala. This supposedly unemotional man, however, unceremoniously woke me up. "Lyra, stop clinging." Still half asleep and bewildered, I just looked at him with wide, pitiable eyes. "I'm cold," I mumbled. He sighed irritably, got up to fetch another blanket from a different room, and threw it unceremoniously onto my head. I burrowed and wriggled under the weight until I finally popped my head out, gasping for the cooler air outside the covers. Adrian's disruption had effectively banished sleep. Unable to drift off again, I lay there, gazing blankly at his face in the dim light. Life was truly unpredictable, I mused. Who could have imagined I'd lose my closest family members and end up lying beside a man I barely knew, linked only by a contract? The thought brought a fresh wave of sadness, and I started to cry silently at first, then quiet sobs that eventually woke Adrian. I braced myself for his usual sharp retort, but to my surprise, he gently pulled me into his arms and spoke softly, soothing me as if I were a child. There. It's okay. Everything will be all right now. His unexpected comfort only made me cry harder, a torrent of grief I had suppressed for too long. The emotional storm lasted well into the night. When a servant knocked in the morning to announce breakfast, I was fast asleep, nestled snugly in Adrian's embrace. After that night, I felt a lingering awkwardness whenever I looked at him, a sense that we were a truly intimate couple who had shared something significant. Adrian, in contrast, remained as composed and distant as ever. From then on, whenever circumstances forced us to share a bed, he would issue a preemptive warning. No crying tonight. If you cry again, I'm throwing you out. I would respond with a drawn-out sigh. Fine. But truthfully, having him beside me, even with his teasing threats, always felt inexplicably comforting, a small anchor in my uncertain world. My most spectacular lapse in composure occurred on the first anniversary of my parents' death. After returning from the cemetery, I drank heavily. When I got back, I latched onto Adrian, kissing him, biting him, my hands roaming clumsily. Through drunken tears, I demanded promises from him. Everyone I love is gone. Promise me you won't leave me. Who am I? He asked, his voice steady despite my antics. My fake husband, Adrian. That night, Adrian simply stripped me and deposited me unceremoniously in the bathroom. He didn't take advantage of my drunken state. As he later put it, he found no appeal in a drunk person. Seeing myself naked in the mirror later made my face flame with embarrassment. Lyra, are you just realizing you can be shy? Isn't it a bit late? Adrian rolled his eyes, a flicker of something unreadable in them, before leaving the room, abandoning me to my mortification. I felt so awkward my toes could have drilled a 3-bedroom house into the floorboards. Fortunately, Adrian had to leave for a business trip shortly after, and I stayed at Grandfather Elias's, giving us space and easing the tension. Those days with Grandfather Elias were lovely. He was genuinely happy, even cooking some dishes for me himself. I grew more certain that the Sterling family was truly refined, that they didn't judge based on wealth or background. At the dinner table, I felt a warmth spread through me, a sense of belonging, like I was treated less like a daughter-in-law and more like a cherished granddaughter. The new year arrived soon after. The Sterling Corporation distributed a gift to every employee, a stored value card for my bakery. It was a massive sum of money, far more than I had ever received in my life, deposited directly into my account. According to Adrian, I reacted like a monkey, jumping and running around in sheer excitement. Look at you, he'd said dryly, so easily impressed. Thank you, my generous benefactor. I showered Adrian with unusual attention in the following days. I'd rush to the door to greet him with his slippers when he came home from work. At dinner, I'd push all the best dishes towards him, then strain my arm trying to reach them from my side of the table. He'd offer a merciless critique. Don't bother yourself with those short arms, and then silently slide the dishes back closer to me. I even prepared a bath for him, filling it with fresh flower petals. He stood at the doorway, watching me with an amused expression. What is this, an invitation to join you? My head whipped back and forth in a frantic denial, and I fled the room only to hear him call out from inside. It's boiling hot. Are you trying to scald me? It was Martha who later informed me that the bathtub in the villa was high-tech, capable of filling itself and maintaining a constant temperature, controlled by a remote in the bedroom drawer. I had been lugging buckets of hot water, breaking my back, all while congratulating myself on my thoughtfulness. I had never bothered with baths before because of the effort, but now, knowing how easy it was, the bathtub in my room saw much more frequent use. Lighting a scented candle and playing music, it really was quite a luxurious experience. Adrian didn't finish work until New Year's Eve. I had gone to Grandfather Elias's villa early and met his parents, his younger sister and brother. The normally quiet villa was bustling and lively for the holidays. The only challenge was maintaining the facade of being a loving couple, which meant sharing a bed again. I was surprised by how convincingly he played the part of a deeply affectionate husband. His performance made my heart flutter more than I cared to admit. On New Year's Eve, tradition called for staying up late, but considering grandfather Elias's age, we moved all activities earlier, including setting off fireworks before midnight. Adrian held me close as we watched, surrounded by his family, a picture of perfect domestic harmony. Given my parents' recent passing, the Sterling family didn't participate in the usual extensive visiting that year, showing me a quiet respect. We spent most of the time together as a close family unit. Adrian and his father were strikingly similar. Reserved, serious, and quick with a sharp retort that could leave you feeling utterly demolished. His mother told me not to take Adrian's harsh words to heart. Men like them, she explained, often seemed to enjoy teasing the people they were closest to. The heating at grandfather Elias's had long been fixed, but inexplicably, I felt feverish one night. In my sleep, I unknowingly fumbled with and unbuttoned the top of my pajamas. I vaguely heard Adrian's low, hushed voice ask, "Lyra, what are you doing?" Still groggy, I mumbled, "So hot." The next moment, a kiss covered my mouth. He captured my hands, pinning them gently above my head, and kissed me with an almost rough intensity, effectively silencing me and jolting me fully awake. My eyes snapped open, and in the faint moonlight, I saw his eyes were closed, his long lashes resting against his cheek. It was a strange, intoxicating feeling. I had no desire to push him away, letting his unique, cool presence consume my lips and tongue. His kisses trailed lower, and in my rising tension I gasped his name, Adrian. He made a shushing gesture against my lips, then continued, guiding the night forward according to his own desires. It was a profound and lengthy night, with moments where my mind went completely blank, followed by sensations of infinite, unfolding brilliance. In the quiet aftermath, I thought I heard him whisper near my ear, "We are truly married now." The simple words, barely audible, were enough to make my heart pound and my face burn crimson. The next morning, to prevent any awkward questions from the servants, we quickly stripped the telltale sheet from the bed, stuffed it into a suitcase, and retrieved a fresh one. My cheeks were flushed throughout the entire process, and to my surprise, Adrian didn't tease me about it. In the following days, our marriage became one in substance as well as name. In bed, Adrian was far from the reserved gentleman he appeared to be downstairs. He was almost possessively in control, guiding everything with a quiet dominance. On the last morning before we left, I finally pleaded with him, "Adrian, my back hurts." He shot me a dismissive look. "Useless," he muttered. He went to take a cold shower alone. When he returned, he instructed me curtly, "Turn over. Lie on your stomach." Just as I was about to retort, expecting another cutting remark about my weakness, a large hand settled gently on my lower back. My body instinctively tensed, then relaxed slightly. "Don't move. I'll rub it for you." As expected of a young master raised in luxury, his hands were perfectly smooth, without a hint of roughness. A comfortable sigh escaped my lips. He responded by giving my backside a sharp, light smack. "What was that? Don't try and tease me, or you'll regret it." I whimpered indignantly, unable to express my frustration. "You need to start exercising with me. Your body is too frail." As he massaged, his familiar stream of complaints started up, instantly dissolving the warmth and gratitude that had begun to build in my heart. I initially thought Adrian was just talking, but he really did start dragging me out to exercise. The pain of being pulled from my warm bed on a cold winter morning was truly unforgettable. "Run. Faster, short legs," he'd call out. In winter, the sun rose late. Sometimes when we went out, it was still dim, the streets lined with objects that were just blurry silhouettes in the mist. I never imagined I would see my first sunrise, and many after, with Adrian. Watching the sun ascend over the distant mountains, bathing the world in golden light, even the tip of Adrian's nose seemed softened by the light, outlined by a delicate golden fuzz that made him look unexpectedly gentle. Every brand new day began with Adrian by my side. One morning, halfway through our run, it started to drizzle. We ducked into a small pavilion for shelter. "You don't need to hide from the rain," he said, a hint of mischief in his voice. "Huh. They say big heads don't worry about the rain, don't they? And your head is huge." I was starting to suspect Adrian's sole source of entertainment was teasing me. In the second year of our marriage, Adrian started staying home more often. Perhaps sensing my confusion, he offered a flimsy explanation. Martha's cooking is good. I just miss her food. But in the evenings, he would call me to his room. When I expected another excuse, he was blunt. I want to sleep with you. He was a creature of strict routine, which left me, a natural night owl, feeling adrift. I would often toss and turn in bed. He'd notice and say, "Since you can't sleep, perhaps we should do some exercise." It confirmed my suspicion that beneath the controlled exterior, this man had a mischievous streak. But he didn't expect my company without compensation. He started giving me gifts casually at first, then more intentionally clothes, shoes, handbags. I had to admit his taste was excellent. We became more and more like a genuine couple, sharing countless moments of life. The restless part of my heart began to settle, slowly gravitating towards Adrian. He began taking me to various business events. As Adrian put it, with a little effort, my face was at least presentable enough to be seen. To avoid embarrassing him, I made an effort to learn social etiquette. It quickly became clear that navigating the world of powerful entrepreneurs was vastly different from welcoming customers into my little shop. I had always thought I was quite articulate, but facing people with such formidable presence often left me speechless. I admit that many times I probably did embarrass Adrian, and I knew his social circle didn't particularly care for me. There was one person in particular who liked to call me the bread girl. After a sharp look from Adrian, he stopped using the nickname in front of him, but I knew he still used it behind my back. One evening, I excused myself from an event for some fresh air. On my way back, I passed a window and overheard them talking loudly about Bianca and Adrian. It was the first time I'd heard Bianca's name mentioned among them. Driven by an impulse I couldn't explain, I hid by the window frame, listening as they recounted stories about Adrian and Bianca that I had never heard. They spoke of how stunningly beautiful Bianca was, calling her a woman of absolute perfection. They talked about the intensity of Adrian and Bianca's past relationship, expressing surprise that Bianca had abandoned Adrian to pursue her acting career. Another chimed in, his voice laced with cynicism. Well, I guess that just shows Adrian wasn't that important to her. Perhaps they had been drinking too much, but they spoke openly about Adrian, even with him nearby. Listening to their casual dissection of his past hurt, a sour feeling pooled in my heart. This was the difference between people, I thought. Adrian was insignificant like grass to Bianca, but in my heart he was a treasure. From then on, I secretly followed Bianca's career, watching her climb the ladder in the entertainment industry step by step, from an unknown actress to an A-list star in 3 years. On stage, she held her head high, smiling with confident pride. They were right, I thought. Bianca was truly the one who deserved to stand by Adrian's side. But grandfather Elias remained steadfastly in my corner. He told me I didn't need to attend those social events if I didn't like them. The Sterling family didn't require its daughters-in-law to be social butterflies. Yet I couldn't accept that. Even the lowliest weed, I told myself, could strive for more. Leveraging the solid reputation Oink and Flower Confectionery Lab had built, I used the money I'd earned to open chain stores and offer franchises. I wanted my business to grow, to become significant. I didn't want to be the bread girl in Adrian's friends' eyes anymore. I wanted to be a successful female entrepreneur. Seeing how hard I worked, Adrian offered his usual dry commentary. Why work so hard? Isn't it better to be taken care of? No, I said simply. What, are you worried you'll get old and ugly and I'll abandon you? You'll get old and ugly first. Adrian looked genuinely surprised. You know how to talk back now? Despite his teasing and apparent lack of enthusiasm for my expansion plans, Adrian provided immense help on my entrepreneurial journey. He even helped me write the business proposals. Grandfather Elias's social circle became my most effective advertising platform. Congratulations to my granddaughter-in-law on her new shop opening. Another franchise successfully launched. Messages proliferated. According to Adrian, Grandfather Elias hadn't been this excited even when the Sterling Corporation went public. By the 3rd year of our marriage, Oink and Flower had become a relatively well-known brand. Yet, the whispers and snide remarks behind my back persisted. People claimed I had only achieved such success by relying on the Sterling family. That time, unusually, Adrian didn't tease. Instead, he offered genuine comfort. He told me that in life I shouldn't worry about what others think. I should just be myself. In that moment I wanted desperately to tell him that everything I was doing, all this striving, was for the sole purpose of one day being worthy of him, of no longer being just the bread girl. Facing someone you love, a deep sense of inferiority is almost inevitable. I yearned to ask him if I was finally enough, but I didn't dare. Just as my 100th Oinkin flower store was about to open, my niece passed away. I had felt a strange premonition in the days leading up to it, a sense that something terrible was about to happen. Yet, when the doctor's call came, the world still seemed to dim around me. She was gone before she had a chance to truly experience the beauty of life. When loved ones are alive, there are always threads of connection, hopes, and possibilities. When they are gone, a profound loneliness descends. Adrian stayed by my side, helping me with my niece's funeral arrangements. Fearing I would be overwhelmed by grief, he even took leave from work to stay with me. I kept telling him, "I'm fine, really. You should go back to work." "Women," he countered, his voice gentle but firm, "are never fine when they say they are." "But I really am fine," I protested, though I couldn't resist his quiet insistence. He stayed, and during those days he spoke to me from the heart, sharing things he rarely did. He said that from now on I could consider him my family, that I wasn't alone. "Thank you," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "Meeting you, it was my luck. I truly believed we would continue on like this, building a life together." But then Bianca returned. Her return signaled the end of the quiet, borrowed happiness I had found in the last few years. Everyone knew Bianca was Adrian's white moonlight, the woman he truly loved, and I was merely his temporary wife. He had never once told me he loved me. That entire night, Adrian stayed in his study. He didn't return to the bedroom. When I woke up, the space beside me was cold and empty. He hadn't woken me for our usual morning exercise. By the time I went downstairs, Martha told me he had already left for work. Martha asked me quietly, "Did you two have a fight?" "Maybe," I replied, my voice barely audible. "Ah, well," she sighed kindly. "Husband and wife, a little quarrel before bed is made up by morning." But in my heart I knew this house would soon have a new mistress. As I had anticipated, Bianca sought out Adrian. As a famous celebrity, her every move was scrutinized by the media. That day, headlines splashed across all major news outlets. Reported on Bianca's secret meeting with Adrian, showing photos of them dining intimately at a French restaurant. I scrolled through the online reports, a bitter taste in my mouth. Then, the news exploded with Bianca's public declaration of affection for Adrian, coupled with the revelation of Adrian's marital status. The public was instantly captivated by the scandalous love triangle. My phone rang incessantly, but my secretary deflected all the calls. For days I waited anxiously for Adrian to say something, anything, to clarify the situation, to give me a definitive answer. But I didn't even see him. About a week later, I attended a friend's opening ceremony and spotted one of Adrian's friends there. The one who used to call me the bread girl. Even though Oinkin Flour was now a nationally recognized brand, he still seemed to look down on me. He deliberately approached me, extending a greeting. "Fancy seeing you here, Mrs. Sterling." He drawled out the title, clearly wanting everyone nearby to hear. I offered him a polite smile and nod, having no desire to engage in conversation. To my annoyance, he continued, "Are you going to Bianca's birthday party tonight?" It was exactly as I suspected. He was trying to provoke me. I answered flatly, "No." "Do you think Adrian will go?" He watched me carefully, and my heart lurched at the mention of Adrian's name. When I didn't immediately respond, he went on, talking more to himself than me. "None of us ever thought Adrian would marry you. Now that Bianca's back, do you think things will go back to how they were?" His rapid-fire questions left me reeling, struggling to keep my composure. On the night of Bianca's birthday, she held a live stream on social media as a fan event. Sure enough, Adrian was there. He was still the perfect gentleman, presenting her with gifts, helping her with her coat, and speaking to her with noticeable politeness. I didn't hear him tease or mock Bianca even once. He could be complimentary after all. The realization, coupled with the contrast to how he treated me, was a painful jab. A wave of sadness washed over me, and before I knew it, tears were silently streaming down my face. Against all odds, Adrian came home after the birthday party. He smelled faintly of alcohol but wasn't drunk. He arrived so suddenly that I didn't have time to wipe away my tears, and he saw them immediately. "What's wrong?" he asked, his expression unreadable. "The drama. It was too sad," I mumbled, quickly fabricating an excuse and grabbing a tissue. "It's been days," he said, his voice low and devoid of warmth. He stood over me, his face cold. "Don't you have anything you want to say to me?" There was so much I wanted to say. I wanted to ask if his kindness over the years was genuine, if he had ever felt anything real for me during our marriage. But another part of me recoiled from the potential humiliation, wanting to leave with what little dignity I had left. If he didn't fight for me, I wouldn't beg. He waited for a long time, his gaze unwavering. Finally, he let out a soft sigh and sat down beside me. If I wanted to spend the rest of my life with you, would you be willing?" Huh. His question completely blindsided me. It was the last thing I expected. I couldn't process it for a moment. You want to be with me?" "Yes." My first instinctive question was about the one person who had dominated my thoughts for days. "What about Bianca?" "Lyra, it's always Bianca, Bianca, Bianca. Is that all you think about? Do you really want to give me to her that badly?" Adrian's brow furrowed, his eyes narrowing into an intense, hooked gaze that pinned me in place. "I don't want to, but I thought you would choose her. Do you have so little confidence in yourself?" "Yes," I admitted quietly. "Well, you're certainly not as good-looking as her. Your figure isn't as good, and your voice isn't as nice. And she's liked by so many people. You're so plain, only I would take pity on you." Even in this moment, hearing what felt like a confession, his words were layered with his usual merciless teasing. Normally, I could handle his digs, but comparing me to Bianca, highlighting my perceived flaws in contrast to her perfection, stung deeply. The tears that had momentarily stopped flowed again, unbidden. "Adrian," I choked out, the words tumbling out in a rush of pent-up emotion. "Am I really that bad? Do you know I was just named an outstanding young representative the other day? The youngest outstanding female entrepreneur? I've earned the respect and admiration of many people. So why to you do I feel like I'm nothing? If you're only doing this out of pity, I don't want to be with you anymore." It was the first time I had ever dared to express my deepest feelings and insecurities so openly to him. The more I spoke, the more the injustice of it overwhelmed me. Tears large as beans splattered onto the duvet, blooming like tiny flowers. Adrian seemed genuinely taken aback by my outburst. "Don't cry," he said, his voice softer now. Even if I find you annoying sometimes, most of the time, I really like you. Adrian, you need to be clear today. Do you like me, or do you dislike me? Those are opposites." Like. He repeated the word several times, then pulled me into a tight embrace. Still feeling the sting of his words, I retaliated by biting his shoulder, making him yelp and wince. Fearing he was just humoring me, I pressed on. "What do you like about me? Tell me specifics. Your eyes, your mouth, your neck, your stomach, your legs." Adrian listed them, his voice growing husky, and then he leaned down and kissed me, swallowing the rest of my question. I saw Bianca one more time after that. She spoke with a hint of self-mockery. "I never thought Adrian would choose you. Perhaps some loves once missed can never be reclaimed." I wasn't sure what Bianca was trying to convey. I sat across from her, tense and awkward, watching her lift her cup with elegant grace, take a sip, and set it down just as gracefully. Maybe she didn't want my empathy. Perhaps she just needed an audience, a moment to finally speak her truth. She recounted her story. 3 years ago, Adrian gave me a lavish proposal. I rejected him right there, in front of him and all our friends. I had just signed a contract for a lead role, a big break, and my agency didn't want me dating, let alone getting married. I couldn't give up that opportunity. "I became famous," she continued, a shadow crossing her face. "Everything I had longed for suddenly felt meaningless. Once you're a star, so much of your life is no longer your own. We yearn for something before we have it," she seemed to say, "and regret it after we choose it. If I hadn't become a star, if I had just been Mrs. Sterling, built a little home, wouldn't that have been a kind of happiness too?" I found myself unable to listen passively. I couldn't help but interject, challenging her. "Maybe then you would have felt Adrian held you back from being a star. You'll always be imagining another life." You made your choice 3 years ago. You shouldn't regret it now. Bianca seemed surprised by my bluntness, pausing for a moment. Everyone used to think you weren't good enough for Adrian, she admitted, her gaze thoughtful. I was puzzled too. But these past few days, seeing your interviews and reports, I realize you're not an ordinary woman at all. I feel a little better about things. Bianca suddenly smiled, a hint of shrewdness in her eyes. I saw then that she wasn't entirely difficult to be around, perhaps just a touch of a princess complex. Anyway, she conceded with a shrug, Adrian is yours. After all, he loves you so fiercely. Every time he talks about you, even when he's complaining, his eyes are full of warmth and laughter. I've never seen Adrian look at anyone like that before. Her words resonated deep within me, sending a jolt through my heart. My mind flooded with memories of our shared nights and days, all the small warm moments we had built together. Later, I spoke to Adrian about what Bianca had said. He admitted that he had deliberately met with Bianca, deliberately made a public appearance with her, just to see how I would react. He was frustrated that a whole week had passed and I hadn't shown any visible reaction at all. He finally couldn't stand it anymore and had confronted me. It seemed Adrian had a more complex, subtly manipulative, yet oddly endearing side I hadn't fully grasped. I challenged him playfully. Didn't you know I loved you? Did you really need jealousy to prove it? When we face someone we love, he said quietly, his usual confidence momentarily absent, we are never entirely sure. Adrian, with all his pride, perhaps genuinely struggled with his own insecurities when it came to love. Maybe he truly loved me deeply and honestly. The future stretched before us, long and full of unknowns, but now I felt ready to face it, hand in hand with him, certain of our path together. Adrian's epilogue. Bianca and I were, in many ways, alike. We came from privileged backgrounds but were not content to merely exist. We both yearned to forge our own paths, to build something significant through our own efforts. My relationship with Bianca wasn't particularly long. It felt less like being lovers and more like being partners. Everyone who saw us together said we were a perfect match, a golden couple destined for each other. Hearing it so often, I started to believe it myself. It felt natural that Bianca should be the one by my side. Perhaps I would even marry her. But she rejected my proposal. Many friends offered me comfort, but honestly, I wasn't truly heartbroken. I understood her completely. Love isn't a mandatory path in life, but chasing your dreams? That felt essential. One night, about a year later, I received a text message from Bianca. She asked if I would wait for her. I looked at Lyra, sleeping soundly in my arms, and replied with a single word, no. The first time I saw Lyra, she was bustling behind the counter of her shop. She wore a cheerful yellow sweater and an apron embroidered with a pig. She was small, fair-skinned, and when she smiled, 2 little dimples appeared. She greeted me with bright enthusiasm. You must be Grandfather Goo's grandson, aren't you? Wow, you're truly handsome. I gave her a polite nod. I had met countless beautiful women, and Lyra wasn't the stunning classic beauty type. But she was unforgettable. Her smile had a way of lingering in your mind, like a warm melody, and she was always so genuinely cheerful, always greeting me with a sunny smile. One day I couldn't help but ask, how are you always so happy? Well, I have delicious desserts to eat and money to earn, she replied simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Why shouldn't I be happy? It made sense, I thought, why people say contentment brings joy. Lyra's way of thinking was wonderfully uncomplicated, the complete opposite of mine. That's why, even though I could have easily sent my secretary to pick up the bread, I started going myself every time. Seeing her, this small busy figure radiating enthusiasm and talking to me so warmly, inexplicably lifted my mood. Calling her a little sun might be an exaggeration, but a little warm stove? That felt just right. I never imagined that such a seemingly cheerful person would face the hardships she did. It felt as though fate couldn't bear to see someone so genuinely happy. I hadn't seen Lyra smile in a long time, and a part of my own heart felt strangely empty. It happened that those days coincided with the final deadline for my family trust. I also knew Lyra was in desperate need of money. An absurd idea began to form in my mind. I would marry her. It would be a transaction. We would both get what we needed, and afterwards we would go our separate ways, returning to our own lives. But I never expected to fall in love with her. She was the most good-natured person I had ever met. No matter how much I teased or annoyed her, she never got truly angry. She was also the most guileless person I knew, handling everything and everyone simply based on her own feelings. This meant she wasn't calculating or manipulative. She simply poured her genuine kindness into others. But what truly made me fall in love with her was something grandfather Elias said. He told me that Lyra opened all those stores, worked so hard to build her business simply because she wanted to be closer to me, to become someone worthy of standing by my side. The realization struck me with immense force. There was truly someone in the world who saw me as her dream. From that moment on, Lyra became my dream too. The inn.